The diplomatic facade commander Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of Sentinel Station, watching the three sleek vessels approach through the darkness of space. The alien ships moved with an elegance that human engineering had never achieved, their crystalline hulls catching starlight and reflecting it in patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. After 47 years of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, First Contact had finally found them. "Commander, we're receiving another transmission," reported Lieutenant David Park from the communications console. His voice carried the tension that had gripped the entire station since the aliens had appeared at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago. "They're requesting permission to enter Earth's orbital space." Sarah nodded, adjusting her uniform as she prepared for what would likely be the most important conversation in human history. The alien language had been surprisingly easy to translate once their computers had analyzed the mathematical patterns embedded in the signals. Either these beings were incredibly skilled at making themselves understood, or they had experience communicating with species they had never met before. "Put them through, Lieutenant. Full translation protocol." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a figure that was both alien and strangely familiar. Ambassador Zephyr, as he had introduced himself, stood nearly 8 feet tall with pale golden skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to hold depths of wisdom. His robes flowed like liquid mercury, and when he spoke, his voice carried a musical quality that was both beautiful and unsettling. "Commander Chun, we are grateful for your patience during these initial communications. The Vorthek Empire has traveled far to greet your species and offer our friendship to the people of Earth." Sarah had led First Contact protocols in dozens of simulations, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of speaking with an alien intelligence. "Ambassador Zephyr, humanity welcomes you to our solar system. We're honored by your visit and eager to learn about your civilization." The alien's expression conveyed what might have been satisfaction. "Your species shows great promise, Commander. We have observed your recent expansion into nearby star systems and are impressed by your determination. However, we have also noticed that you lack the experience necessary to navigate the complexities of galactic politics." There was something in the ambassador's tone that made Sarah's instincts prickle with warning. The words were diplomatic, but underneath them lay an assumption that bothered her. "What do you mean by complexities, Ambassador?" "The galaxy is vast and filled with dangers that young species like humanity cannot imagine. There are hostile empires, resource conflicts, and territorial disputes that have destroyed countless civilizations. The Vorthek Empire has guided many species through these challenges, helping them grow safely within the galactic community." Lieutenant Park glanced at Sarah with concern. The way the ambassador spoke about humanity as a young species carried the same condescending tone that adults used when speaking to children. But Sarah maintained her diplomatic composure, knowing that this conversation was being monitored by every major government on Earth. "We appreciate your concern for our welfare, Ambassador. What kind of guidance does the Vorthek Empire typically provide?" Zephyr's large eyes seemed to gleam with anticipation. "We offer protection treaties that ensure the safety of developing species. In exchange for our military protection and technological guidance, new member species agreed to certain reasonable limitations on their expansion and development. This prevents conflicts and ensures peaceful growth." The word limitations sent a chill through Sarah's spine. She had studied enough history to recognize the language of subjugation dressed up as protection. "What sort of limitations are you referring to?" "Nothing burdensome, Commander. Simply agreements to restrict territorial expansion beyond your current holdings and to coordinate military development with our strategic advisors. These measures have successfully protected dozens of species from the wars that consume the galaxy." Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Ambassador, humanity has always valued our independence and freedom to choose our own path. We would need to discuss any such agreements carefully with our governments. The aliens. Expression remained pleasant, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Of course, Commander. We understand that young species often struggle with concepts of galactic responsibility. We are prepared to demonstrate the benefits of our protection and the consequences of refusing it. Before Sarah could respond, the communication ended. The screen went dark, leaving the human crew to stare at each other in stunned silence. The threat had been subtle, but unmistakable. The Vorthic Empire was not making an offer. They were issuing an ultimatum. Lieutenant Park, get me General Hayes on the priority channel, Sarah ordered, and patch me through to the Joint Chiefs. We need to discuss this situation immediately. General Victoria Hayes appeared on the screen within minutes, her stern expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. She was a veteran of 3 colonial wars and had spent her career preparing for threats that might emerge from the depths of space. Commander Chun, I've been monitoring your communications. What's your assessment? General, these aliens aren't here to make friends. They're here to make us surrender our independence in exchange for protection we don't need. It's the classic protection racket, dressed up in diplomatic language. Hayes nodded grimly. My thoughts exactly. They're studying our responses, analyzing our capabilities, and preparing to make their next move. The question is, what do we do about it? Sarah looked out at the alien ships, which had moved closer to Earth's orbital space. Their elegant forms were beautiful, but she could see the subtle signs of weapon systems and defensive shields. General, do we have any assets in the outer system that could help us if this situation escalates? Hayes paused for a moment, her expression becoming carefully neutral. Commander, there are aspects of our military capabilities that remain classified even at your level. Let's just say that humanity has been preparing for this day longer than most people realize. Over the next several hours, the alien fleet demonstrated their advanced technology by disabling 3 human patrol ships near Mars. The displays of power were precisely calculated, enough to show their superiority without actually destroying the vessels or killing their crews. The message was clear. Resistance would be futile. Ambassador Zephyr requested another meeting, this time with Earth's senior leadership. The conversation took place in the secure conference room of the International Space Coalition headquarters, with President Maria Santos, General Hayes, and Secretary of Defense James Mitchell representing humanity. President Santos, we hope that our demonstration has clarified the situation. Zephyr began, his musical voice carrying a harder edge than before. The Vorthic Empire offers protection and guidance, but that offer requires a decision. Species that choose isolation often find themselves unable to survive in a hostile galactic environment. President Santos, a former ambassador herself, recognized the language of coercion. Ambassador, what happened to the species that refused your protection? Zephyr's companion, a shorter but more heavily built alien who had introduced himself as military advisor Kex, spoke for the first time. Some chose to remain isolated and fell behind technologically. Others expanded too rapidly and encountered hostile forces they could not handle. A few made the unfortunate decision to challenge the Vorthic Empire directly. And what happened to those who challenged you? General Hayes asked quietly. Kex's expression hardened. They learned that the Vorthic military is not to be underestimated. We do not enjoy conflict, but we will defend our member species from any threat, including those who would disrupt galactic peace. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The aliens were not just offering protection. They were threatening annihilation for any species that refused to submit. President Santos stood up, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Ambassador, humanity will need time to consider your proposal. This decision affects our entire species and cannot be made hastily. Zephyr's eyes narrowed slightly. Time is a luxury that few species can afford, President Santos. The galaxy does not wait for those who hesitate. We will remain in your system for 48 hours. After that, we will require a decision. As the aliens left the conference room, General Hayes activated the secure communication system. All stations, this is General Hayes. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. Contact our friends in the outer system and tell them we need them home. Now. President Santos looked puzzled. Victoria, what's Protocol 7? Hayes smiled grimly. It's humanity's insurance policy, Madam President. We've been preparing for this day for 20 years, and we're about to find out if our preparations were adequate. Deep in the outer reaches of the solar system, beyond the orbit of Neptune, massive engines began to power up. Something that had been waiting in the darkness for 2 decades started its long journey home. The Vorthic Empire had made one critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had assumed that what they could see was all there was to see. As the 48-hour deadline approached, long-range sensors began detecting an enormous energy signature approaching from the outer system. The readings were so massive that they initially appeared to be sensor errors. But as the hours passed, it became clear that something unprecedented was heading toward Earth. The alien ships, confident in their superiority, had been monitoring human communications and military preparations with amusement. But as their own sensors detected the approaching anomaly, their amusement turned to concern, then to alarm. Ambassador Zephyr stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the readings that his science officer had just presented. What is that thing? Sir? The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. It's massive, larger than anything we've encountered before, and it's definitely artificial. Zephyr felt a chill run through his body. In 40 years of conquest disguised as diplomacy, he had never encountered a species that possessed technology capable of generating such readings. How long until it arrives? 6 hours, sir. And Ambassador, it's broadcasting human identification codes. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Zephyr felt the cold touch of fear. The humans had been hiding something from them, something that might change everything about this supposedly simple conquest. Asterisk. The Colossus awakens. The massive form of the UEE Goliath emerged from the darkness of space like a mountain given life. At 20 kilometers in length, the dreadnought dwarfed every human vessel ever built, its angular hull bristling with weapon systems that could level continents. The ship's arrival sent shockwaves through both human and alien forces. But for very different reasons. Captain Marcus Wolf stood on the bridge of humanity's greatest secret, watching the tactical displays show the positions of the Vorthic fleet. His weathered face, marked by decades of service in the outer colonies, showed no emotion as he studied the alien vessels that had dared to threaten his homeworld. The Goliath had been his command for 15 years, patrolling the edges of human space and preparing for the day when Earth would need her protection. Captain, we're receiving communications from both the alien fleet and Earth Command, reported Commander Lisa Torres, the ship's executive officer. Admiral Chun is requesting immediate contact. Wolf nodded, his gray eyes never leaving the tactical display. Put Admiral Chun through first. Let's see what our visitors have been up to while we were away. The screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Rebecca Chun, Sarah's older sister, and the head of Earth's Deep Space Defense Force. Her relief at seeing the Goliath was evident, but so was her concern about the delicate situation they were facing. Marcus, thank God you received our signal. The situation here is more complex than we initially reported. These aliens aren't just making demands. They're threatening to destroy us if we don't submit to their protection treaty. False expression. Darkened. How long do we have? They gave us 48 hours to decide. That deadline expires in 6 hours. Their ships are more advanced than anything we've seen, but Marcus, they've been scanning the outer system constantly. They're nervous. About something. Wolf allowed himself a small smile. They should be. Rebecca, patch me through to the alien fleet. It's time we introduced ourselves properly. The communication channel opened, and Ambassador Zephyr's image appeared on the screen. The alien's usual composed demeanor was noticeably strained, and his large eyes darted nervously between Wolf and the tactical displays, showing the Goliath's massive form. I am Captain Marcus Wolf of the United Earth exploration ship Goliath. I understand you've been having discussions with our representatives about protection treaties. Zephyr struggled to maintain his diplomatic facade. Captain Wolf, we were not informed that humanity possessed vessels of such magnitude. Your ship's energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. There are many things about humanity that aren't in your databases, Ambassador. We prefer to keep our capabilities private until circumstances require otherwise. Wolf's voice carried the authority of someone who had spent years preparing for this exact moment. I'm curious about these protection treaties you've been discussing. Would you mind explaining the terms? The alien's composure cracked slightly. Captain, perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. The Vorthic Empire seeks only to guide younger species safely through the complexities of galactic politics. We offer our protection in exchange for reasonable agreements about territorial expansion and military development. Wolf leaned forward, his eyes boring into the alien diplomat. Let me make sure I understand. You want humanity to limit our expansion, reduce our military capabilities, and accept your guidance in exchange for protection from threats you conveniently haven't described in detail. Is that correct? Zephyr's golden skin seemed to pale. Captain, the galaxy is filled with hostile species that would destroy Earth without hesitation. The Vorthic Empire has successfully protected dozens of civilizations from these threats. Protected them from whom, exactly? Wolf's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the surface. Because from where I sit, it looks like you're the threat they needed protection from. The alien's eyes widened in shock. No species had ever spoken to the Vorthic Empire with such directness. For centuries, they had relied on their technological superiority and careful manipulation to subjugate emerging civilizations. The arrival of the Goliath had shattered their assumptions about human capabilities. Military advisor Kex spoke up, his voice harsh with frustration. Captain Wolf, you underestimate the dangers of the galaxy. There are forces out there that could destroy your entire system without warning. The Vorthic Empire offers protection from these threats. Wolf's expression didn't change. Commander Torres, please display the tactical analysis of the Vorthic fleet for our guests. The screen split, showing detailed scans of the alien vessels. The readings revealed weapon systems, shield generators, and propulsion technology that was advanced, but not impossibly so. More importantly, the analysis showed that the Goliath's armament was superior in every measurable category. As you can see, Ambassador, we've been analyzing your ships since you arrived. Your technology is impressive, but it's not beyond our capabilities. In fact, our projections indicate that the Goliath alone could disable your entire fleet without taking significant damage. Zephyr stared at the readings in disbelief. This is impossible. Your species has been in space for less than a century. You cannot have developed such advanced technology so quickly. Wolf smiled for the first time since the conversation began. That's another assumption about humanity that proves incorrect. We've been preparing for this day for longer than you realize. The Goliath is just one of several projects we've been working on in the outer system. The revelation hit the aliens like a physical blow. They had based their entire strategy on the assumption that humanity was a typical emerging species with limited capabilities. The existence of the Goliath and the implication that there were other secret projects completely overturned their calculations. Captain, Zephyr said slowly, perhaps we should discuss new terms for our relationship. The Vorthic Empire is always willing to negotiate with equals. Wolf's eyes narrowed. Equals? 5 minutes ago, you were threatening to destroy us if we didn't submit to your protection. Now you want to negotiate as equals because you've discovered we can defend ourselves? That doesn't sound like the behavior of a benevolent empire. Commander Torres stepped forward, her voice cold with controlled anger. Captain, I've been analyzing the communication patterns from their ships. They've been in contact with at least 12 other star systems during their time here. I think we need to ask our guests about their other protected species. Zephyr's face went completely pale. The humans had uncovered the communications network that connected the Vorthic empires. Various conquered territories. There would be no hiding the truth now. Ambassador, Wolf said quietly, I think it's time you told us the truth about your empire. How many species have you protected with treaties like the one you offered us? The alien diplomat seemed to age before their eyes. Captain Wolf, you do not understand the complexities of galactic politics. Some species require guidance to prevent them from destroying themselves or others. That's not what I asked. How many? Keck spoke up, his voice bitter with defeat. 17 species currently exist under Vorthic protection. They are safe, prosperous, and peaceful under our guidance. Wolf stood up, his tall frame imposing even on the communication screen. They're slaves, aren't they? You find species that are just beginning to explore space, offer them protection from imaginary threats, and then gradually strip away their independence until they're completely dependent on you. The silence that followed was answer enough. The Vorthic Empire's centuries of conquest through deception had finally been exposed by a species that refused to be intimidated. Captain, Zephyr said desperately, even if you can match our military capabilities, you cannot fight the entire empire. We have hundreds of ships, thousands of worlds. You are still just one species. Wolf's smile was grim, but determined. Ambassador, you're about to learn something important about humanity. We don't abandon people who need help, and we don't bow to bullies. Your empire has been built on lies and threats, and it's time for that to end. He turned to Commander Torres. Lisa, signal the fleet. It's time to show our guests what humanity really looks like when we're united. The space around Earth suddenly filled with new contacts as dozens of ships emerged from stealth fields and hidden bases throughout the solar system. The Goliath had not been humanity's only secret. It had been the flagship of a massive defensive fleet they had been preparing. For this day for decades, the Vorthic ships found themselves outnumbered and outgunned by an enemy they had completely underestimated. Their technological advantage had evaporated, and their strategy of intimidation had backfired spectacularly. Ambassador Zephyr, Wolf said formally, you have a choice to make. You can return to your empire and inform them that humanity rejects their protection treaty. You can also tell them that we'll be visiting those 17 species you mentioned to offer them real protection from you. The alien diplomat stared at the tactical display showing the human fleet surrounding his ships. For the first time in his long career, he faced a species that was not only capable of defending itself, but willing to defend others. Captain Wolf, he said slowly, you are making a grave mistake. The Vorthic Empire will not tolerate this defiance. Wolf's expression hardened. Then they'll learn what happens when they threaten humanity and our friends. We've been preparing for this fight for 20 years, and we're ready for whatever comes next. As the Vorthic fleet began its retreat from Earth's solar system, Captain Wolf stood on the bridge of the Goliath, watching them disappear into the darkness. The first shot had been fired in what would become known as the Liberation War, and humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as protectors of those who could not protect themselves. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.